Hello everybody, I'm Graham. I'm a photographer in Durham. I'm a retoucher as well. You can find me on Twitter at GKSPhoto and at Graham Short. I also have a blog which is durhamphotographer.wordpress.com. Now this is a video tutorial explaining a bit about frequency separation, which is a fantastic technique for retouching portraits. Now I've made an action for this, which I'm going to make available to download, and you can get that for just £1 by following the link that I'll put in the comments. And I'm going to show you a bit about what frequency separation is as a technique. I'm going to show you how it's used, how it works. I'm going to demonstrate how the action that I've made sets up layers for you to use with this technique, and then I'm going to do a little bit on how you can use this for doing a bit of blemish removal on skin, getting rid of stray hairs, a little bit of blending on the tone and colour of the skin, and a little bit on how you can use this technique for adding a bit of sharpening as well. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So on this picture, which is a photograph I took of a local model called Faye, I'm sure she won't mind me using a photograph unretouched and straight out of the camera just to demonstrate this. So when you've installed the action and you've run it, it needs to be run with a layer called background, and that needs to be selected when you run the action. Okay, so long as you've got that, then the action should run with no problems. And what it does is it'll create these layers here in these groups. So you get one main group called frequency separation, and within that you get a high frequency group and a low frequency group. Let's look at each of these in turn. Turn the high frequency off and we'll look at the low frequency first. So this layer here is really just a blurred version of the original image. We've done a little bit of surface blur and a little bit of Gaussian blur. So that's all this layer is. The layer above that is an even more blurred version. Okay, so that's the same layer duplicated again and then a bit more blurred. Okay, currently it's got a black mask on it so that you can't see it. We'll just disable that mask. There you go. So that's what the next layer is, and you can see that with this little arrow here that I've clipped it to this layer. So that means that that's only going to be visible on top of this layer. Okay, and if I turn that one off, the visibility, you'll see that this turns off as well. Okay, so let's enable that mask again and we'll look at the next group. Okay, so now we've got this as the only visible group, and currently the only layer that's actually visible that you can see anything on is this one called high freak. Now this, you can see, is mostly grey. It's got no colour value, it's got no luminosity values as such really, but what it has got is all the detail and the edges and the texture. If we zoom right in on this, you can see, there we go, there's the eye, a little bit of a white vein in the eye, and there's some skin texture there. Okay, so that's what the high frequency data of the image is. It's not really the color, it's not really the luminosity value, instead it's the texture and the edges and the detail. Okay, that's what the high frequency data is. It's all the detail of the image. So as opposed to the low frequency group, now this hasn't really got any detail in it. If you zoom in, you'll see there's no skin texture. You can't really make out any distinct edges. It's all very blurred. This is low frequency data. This is what you might see if you sort of squinted your eyes and poured milk in them. You know, you can't see any detail in the image whatsoever here. So what this action has done is it has separated out the detail from the low frequency data, the blurriness of it, the general gist of it, what you might see if you squinted with your eyes. That's the low frequency, and the high frequency is all the detail. Now you'll notice that the background image is now turned off, but with these groups visible, yeah, both of those working together recombine to recreate the original image. Okay, it's exactly the same. And just to prove it, there we go, that's the only one that's visible. Okay, we'll put the background image on, turn that off. Look, it's exactly the same, okay? No difference whatsoever. Okay, but let's look into this a bit more. So let's start demonstrating a bit of what we can use this for. Right, let's look at the blemish removal side of things first. Okay, now to start removing some blemishes, we want to switch off the low frequency stuff and the original background image and work only with the texture and the detail. Okay, so let's zoom right in, and we're going to work, just for demonstration purposes, on this area of the cheek here, on the side of the nose. We're going to use the clone stamp tool, and it's on 50% opacity, and it's on current and below. Okay, so it's only going to sample from this layer and any other layers that are below it that are visible. That's what that bit means, and it's important. Okay, so when we paint with the clone stamp tool on this blemish removal layer, which is completely blank by the way, there's nothing on it yet. When we paint on this, we're going to be sampling from the high frequency layer here. Okay, so that's where we'll be sampling from, but we'll be painting what we sample on here. Okay, so let's increase the size of the brush slightly. Okay, increase the size of the brush slightly. There we go. Okay, now let's get rid of these little blemishes here. Okay, let's do that. These ones. Okay, so we sample from around the surrounding area. There we go. Let's just get a bit there to plonk in the middle. There we go. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just sampling the information from the surrounding area. That's all we're doing. I'm painting it over. You want to keep sampling from areas around the blemish that you're removing, and always not from the same direction, because then you run the risk of pattern repetition, and that can look really obvious. It really stands out, the humanized great spot and pattern repetition. So you really want to keep sampling from different places just to make sure that you don't get any patterns being repeated. Okay, so that's those little blemishes gone now. One there. Okie dokie, now I can see there's a little bit of a line going down here, so I'll just sample over that. There we go. There we go. Now let's just imagine that these creases are really bad and we want to get rid of them. Not that they are, we're just, demonstrating the technique. We're going to sample slightly below, paint over the top of the little crease. There we go. Now the reason I'm only using 50% opacity brush here is because I don't want to completely make these things vanish. Okay, I just want to reduce how obvious that they are. Okay, so by having a low opacity brush, it means I can build the effect up over time by going over it more than once. There we go. Okay, now there's a couple of little lines going down the side of the nose here. I remember watching a retouching video on the F-Stopper's website, I think it was, and they cautioned against allowing parallel lines in skin texture. So if you do see some parallel lines, it's probably going to be a good idea to reduce how obvious they are. Okay, so what I'm retouching now are a couple of blemishes by the nose. There we go. Just slowly, gradually getting rid of these little blemishes. There we go. Just sampling from different places every time. Trying to keep where you sample from as close as you can to it, usually, just so that you get a similar kind of skin texture going over the top, so that it doesn't look really silly, because you see the skin texture here is very different to the skin texture down here, so you wouldn't sample from up there to paint over here. There's no point. The skin's at a different angle and it's a different kind of skin, so you want to try and keep it as close by as you can. Okay, so just a little crease going by the side of the mouth there. There we go, we'll just reduce that slightly. And there's a couple of parallel lines going up to the nose there, so just reducing how obvious they are as well. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do there, because that's all that we really need to do to demonstrate the technique. I can't let that slide, that little bit of makeup spillage there. I'm sure the makeup artist, because these little dots are so small, but they're not really certain whether or not they've put those there or not. It's only because I'm zooming in 100% that I can see these tiny little dots. Okay. A couple of little bits of hair from the eyebrow just to tidy up there. There we go. Okay, we'll leave that there. So we've demonstrated that bit. Let's just see what we've done so far, shall we? Okay, so there's that cheek area. That's the bit we've been working on. And if I just switch off our blemish removal layer, you'll see what difference that made. There we go. So nice and clean. Okay. Especially these bits with the eyes. You see those creases on the eyes are still there. They've just been significantly reduced. Okay, there we go. So there's that bit. Next, we're going to see about removing these hairs going across the top of the forehead. So let's use this additional blemish removal layer for that, because this is a slightly different job. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, because I'm concerned that the darkness of these hairs might still have been visible in the blurred layer, let's just look at that. If we zoom out, it'll be easier to see. There is just a little bit of darkness there, I think, from those hairs, and maybe a little bit going across the top of the forehead. So what we'll do is we'll just go into that layer and we'll paint over it a bit. Well, we'll use the clone stamp, I think. There we go. Okay, so we're still on current and below, and because this is the only layer that's visible, it's just going to sample from that layer. Okay, so there we go. I'm just going to paint over that. Okay, so I think that's about it. Don't have to be too precious with this, remember it's just a blurred version. We're really just getting the colour tones and the luminosity right. But we're also going to use our extra blurring layer here. Call it extra blurring, but really we're going to use it for blending really. So let's just paint white onto our mask. Now you can see it coming on there. We're just going to go over the forehead and make sure that where the hair is going across really isn't going to be destroying the colour tone that we're looking for. There we go. Okay. Right, so let's turn that back on. Okay, super. Right, now we'll turn this back off, the low frequency group off, and we're going to work on our additional blemish removal. Okie dokie. So for this I think we'll get our clone stamp tool and we'll ramp it up to, let's say, 75% for this. Okay, so you get your cursor size just the right amount for covering over the hairs that we're going to remove. Okay, and we're going to sample a bit of skin just next to it. There we go, just paint it over. There we are. So that's just gradually getting rid of those little hairs, just painting over them one at a time. We're being careful that where we select from is an area that's suitable to select from so that the texture doesn't clash. There we go. And again, we do want to be careful about pattern repetition. We don't want to get any patterns repeated here, because that would totally give the game away. Okay, I think we're almost there. We've just got maybe a little bit going on here. Okay. And now what we'll do is we'll just reduce that down to 50% again, because I think around about here I can just see a little bit of pattern repetition. I haven't quite been careful enough about that. So just going to sample an area from here and a 50% just to have a few bits in, just to break up the pattern repetition. You can be quite random with this, because it doesn't really matter too much, just so long as you break up the pattern and you've got the texture pretty much in the same ballpark. There we go. So that's that gone now. Now what we're also going to do is, you see there's a few creases in the skin on the forehead here. We're just going to reduce those somewhat. So let's reduce this down to, let's say, 35%. We're going to sample slightly below and then paint that over. We're not totally getting rid of these creases, because it's part of the person's face, and to do so wouldn't be honest. I want to still show them as they are, only reduce the appearance of the wrinkles somewhat. There's one going down the forehead there. There's that. I think we've also got something here. Could just see a little something going on there. There we go. There we go. Okay. So that's that bit done. Okay. So let's put our low frequency back on, and check out what we did. There we go. Okay, so we could probably do with introducing a little bit more skin texture in here. We have got some areas where the pores aren't quite as deep as they are here. So what we'll do with that is we'll switch that back off and we'll put our opacity up to 100%, and we'll just sample a few bits to where we've got the deep pore texture, and we'll just drop it in. Yeah, okay, that'll do. Like that. Okay. Nice. Okay, that might have just broken that up enough. Let's have a look. Turn it off and on. Yeah, happy with that. That's fine. Okay. Let's come back out of it. Okie dokie. So, next thing I want to show you is how we can even out skin tone a little bit. And to do that, we're going to use our extra blurring layer again. We're going to quickly grab a white brush. And the idea here is to just paint over the areas of skin where you want that skin tone evened out slightly. Okay, now it's such a subtle effect, but when it's done and you switch it on and off, you will notice it. So as you're doing it, you can't really see that it's making much of an effect at all. Okay, let's just quickly look at our mask, see if I've missed some places. Yes, I have there. On the nose, there. Okay, let's come down onto the chin area. Just quickly go over the chin. Just go on that side there. Okay, and we'll just finish off going along the jawline. And up here like that. Okay. So there we go. That should be most of the areas of the face covered. Just do the forehead there. Maybe it's a bit up the top of the eye there. Okay. So let's just quickly have a check on the mask, see where we got up to, and any bits we didn't quite get right, just quickly rectify. There we go. Right, okay, that'll do me. So we'll zoom out a bit and I'll show you what effect that's had. Okay. We'll turn this layer on and off. There we go, you see that? See how that smoothed things out a bit? Now, that effect might be a bit too hard for some people's tastes. For me it is. It's currently on 50% opacity. If it was on 100%, ooh, that's really flattening things out a bit, isn't it? You might like that look, you might not. I suppose it's quite nice really, but for me I would probably reduce it down to say 35%, and you might not even need to use it at all. It very much depends. I mean, this model's got great skin, the model you're shooting might not have, so there we go. It's just a very gentle kind of subtle blending of the skin tones there. So that's what that layer can be used for. The last thing I want to show you is this layer here, which we haven't talked about yet. This is an extra sharpening layer, and you can use it or leave it, it's up to you. But what it is, it's a duplication of the high frequency layer, so just that duplicated put above it, and it's got a black mask put on it. If you paint white onto the black mask, you'll see that it has a very, very strong sharpening effect. Let's just do it quickly on this eye. Bing. There we go. And on that eye. There we go. Okay. Now at 100%, wow, that's far too strong, isn't it? That's far too strong. Okay. But at 0%, you can't really see it. So let's just slowly slide it up until we're at a place that we think we're happy with. For me, I was happy with it at about 9–10%. Yeah. So with that switched on and off, you can see that it's sharpening the eye quite nicely. I'll zoom in 100% just to demonstrate that. There's the eye there. No sharpening, sharpening, no sharpening, sharpening. Okay, so there we go. That's frequency separation. It works by separating out the low frequency data from the high frequency data, allowing you to work on each one individually. It can also allow you to blend skin tones slightly, and it can allow you to add a little bit of sharpening as and when you need it. So if that's going to be useful to you, then by all means follow the link in the comments to download your copy of the action. It's only £1. I'm not asking for the world, just a little bit. And if you like this video and if you found it useful, if it helped explain the technique slightly for you, then please give it a thumbs up and like it. Feel free to share it if you want to, that would be great. And if you feel very strongly about it and you want me to do more tutorial videos and show you support, brilliant, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Great, that's it. Thanks very much guys. I'll catch you next time. Bye bye.